Hello, everyone. Welcome back to East Coast DNA. Today's guest, another Music PEI Award nominee. We have Richard Wood. Welcome, Richard.
Great to be here. Thank you so much.
Right off the bat, I'm not sure if you would recall, but we did briefly meet backstage. It was, I think, last year at the ECMAs, maybe.
Coach Musical. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. I
Yes.
was, I was doing some work for Mary Beth Carty at the showcase that was bumped up right back up against yours. So I took your performance in backstage. So I didn't get to see the full visual effect, but
Right.
I do very distinctly remember hearing you playing Kashmir in your set.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that stuck with me. In one of the early episodes, one of the artists we were interviewing, because I used to do it with my brother, and he
Right.
was asking us about our musical influences, and Led Zeppelin was one of the ones that would have popped up early on. So it was cool to hear that in a showcase environment because that's usually all bells and whistles, right?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, of course, last year too, with the ECMAs, like it was really cool to, a lot of the work that I've been doing, especially lately, whether it be with a trio. So really cool to kind of go back and bring in the full band for that. And it offers such much more dynamic, range of things that you can do sound wise. And so it was really cool. It was nice to have that full sound there and, throw little hints and little, like you said, little elements like that of whether it be
Yeah.
cat, other stuff. But really, really cool for me to kind of bring it back old school, and bring in the full band and showcase that. So yeah, it was awesome. A lot of fun.
And kind of we'll get into a little bit more specifics with some of the nominations there in a minute because I do want to talk a little bit about genres.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, I'm curious about your background because as an instrumentalist, because
Yeah.
like the album that you're nominated for is a live instrumental album.
Right. Yeah.
So as an instrumentalist, most of the artists that I end up talking to, there's a lot of duos and trios, like you'd have different formations, like you're saying yourself, and then like full bands at showcases.
Right.
But there's a lot of hired guns that are fiddlers in the East Coast.
Yeah.
But your name is out there. Like there's quite a bit of acclamation for you out there already. You must have been building a name for yourself over a long period of time for the kind of pull that you have out there. But I'm curious, like, how did you gravitate towards being Richard Wood instead of being Richard Wood of this band or Richard Wood that plays with this singer songwriter guy? Like, how did you sidestep that? Because I don't know. I'm sure I do know artists that are like that,
Right.
but I don't know anyone's stories that took that path.
Right. Right. Well, years ago, like when I got into this music, I mean, I started as a dancer. I was a traditional step dancer.
Okay.
It was uh, really, really cool, but an odd thing, especially, back in the 80s, because there wasn't a whole lot of boys that were, you know, step dancing here on the East Coast.
Sure.
Right. So unique, but I mean, I fell in love with the music right away because a lot of traditional step dancing is done to fiddle music, right?
Hmm.
And and then of course, got into doing competitions and competing and making quite a name for myself here and throughout the Maritimes in step dance competitions. And that of course kind of led right into, well, if I'm dancing to this music all the time, mom and dad said, would you like to try and maybe learn fiddle? And I said, sure, I'll give it a try. And so started taking lessons for my first year. And big influences were, Howie McDonald, who of course from Cape Breton has played with the Rankin family, and brilliant Cape Breton fiddle player, and Buddy McMaster,
Hmm.
and the Rankins and the Bear McNeils, and etc. So of course that those were all big influences on me, and started learning to play, and that developed really, really quickly. I think it was really cool that I started as a dancer because um, I think what that instilled in me was a real sense of rhythm.
Yeah, I
And
was wondering that with timing because I think that with people that multi-instrumentalists, like people that are singer-songwriters, but like will jump behind a drum kit. I'm like,
right.
oh, like I could see that you've got that. So the
So that
dancing would have given you that tempo.
yeah, the tempo and just really locked into to uh to solid tempo and
Hmm.
syncopation. And so of course a lot of that shows up in my tunes as well and stuff that I've composed and on my albums. But anyhow, that kind of led into that. And then from playing the fiddle, I mean, I wanted to learn how to back up the music, so I started at 16 learning piano as well, and so that kind of followed suit. But as far as the fiddling goes, like yeah, it was the type of thing where um, through being what I started at 11, it would have been 12, maybe 13. I was out performing concerts here, there, everywhere, benefit shows, around Prince Edward Island, and it just kind of grew, and it started to grow and grow as kind of a soloist.
Hmm.
I at that point didn't do a whole lot of backing up other bands. It was, I think you kind of, I don't know, I always, and it's kind of a weird thing because when you talk about charisma or you talk about um having there's just an extra something. I don't know, and maybe you could look at it as I don't know. I'm trying to think of a comparison, maybe like Freddie Mercury. Well, there's a solid the band is there, but there's no denying that kind of front man
Yeah.
uh, persona that you. And it was nothing that there was nothing that I really didn't. I wasn't really striving for that at the time, but it's just something that kind of took over. I was the guy that was doing the thing, and other musicians would be with me, but I'm playing melody line, I'm doing
Hmm.
front and center, and it kind of just grew from that. And funny enough, after of course recording my first few records and started to winning different awards, whether it be East Coast Music Awards or PEI Music Awards, whatever.
Hmm.
But it kind of grew from that into starting to tour, right? And then I would tour with backup musicians and touring across the Maritimes and then across Canada, and then into the UK, and all this was leading into the late 90s. And then got the call to start working with Shania Twain, which was completely different because that was doing a backup role,
Hmm.
but that kind of exposure to do, the Letterman show and Good Morning America um, but even then, and from that, there was still, as a backup artist in that role, it still really propelled and kind of, springboarded right into what I do as a soloist as well. And then working with the chieftains from Ireland
Hmm.
and bring all over the US and doing, solo stuff in the show, but also playing with them and it just kind of it kind of snowballed from there. So that was kind of like the early goings, and it always, but 90% of it or so always kind of had me as the front
Yeah.
person, the face, right? um yeah, and it's just kind of the way things kind of evolved and kind of have gone forward, yeah.
Like having some of those big name exposures, like being on TV for the
Yeah,
Letterman show and like the Shania Twain thing, like that certainly pads your resume when you come back home and say, I want to do this. They're like, of course he wants to do something. What else does he want to do? Because they've already seen the success. So
right.
it's good to have that. And I mean, you've had that a long time ago. You're probably at a position now where you can kind of, to an extent, pick what you want to do. I know finances are always a different story, but as far as
Well, that's
dream projects,
yeah, and that's true. That's very true. However, with that being said, the music business, I mean, it's evolved and it's changed and it's so it's not an easy go. And
yeah,
in terms of touring, I mean, the expenses and everything that goes into all of that. I mean, it's different than what it was maybe 25 years ago or whatever, but equally as hard and equally as challenging and just different challenges now. but I am very blessed that I am in the position now, like you said, where we can do a little bit more picking and choosing of what kind of we'd like to do or where I would like to go.
Hmm.
There was a period in time, of course, too, when I was in my teens, where, yes, I did a lot of performing at whether it be, the old Dublin pub here in PEI or different bars, and that honed my skills, of course, but
Hmm.
it was that moment in time, doing the 3 hours a night, and you're just, kind of balls to the wall, so to speak. But it was great, and I mean, those moments. I mean, I wouldn't, you wouldn't trade that for the world, because that was an opportunity to hone your skills, and
Yes.
you know, and carve. You're creating a name, building an audience, and that grows, and that grows into something else, and from there on to doing theater shows and on to etc. So, yeah,
Now, I am curious. We'll get into the genre question now, which we don't have to spend too long on it because I do bring this up a bit that
yeah,
the genres are not really that accurate anymore, like because everything's a little fluid, and most artists definitely identify under multiple categories. And kind of along that theme, congratulations, you've been nominated in four different categories for Music PEI.
yeah,
So I don't normally leave notes around anymore, but I did have to leave some notes just to make sure that I got the four. But you have an album of the year for your live album,
yeah,
and then there's the international or instrumental recording of the year.
right,
And now, genre-wise, you're under roots and you're under world music, which does 100% make sense to me as somebody that's constantly digesting this stuff and trying
yeah,
to find how to categorize things. And so, and back in the day, I used to work record stores too. So this is something that's bothered me for decades.
right, right, right.
But I am curious for Richard Wood,
Hmm.
world music.
Yeah,
Now, for me, the definition might be a little different than what it is for you. So rather than me injecting my perspective here,
right.
for you, what is world music? Because if I'm talking to people that don't follow music industry stuff around here, they wouldn't know what that category meant.
I myself would, well, I think it's because I've had the opportunity to perform, in Germany and in
Yeah.
Belgium and in Denmark and in Shetland. In 2 months' time, I'll be up in northern Scotland, um, and back into mainland Scotland, in England. So I've got to see the impact that Celtic music has made, and it continues to make in all different parts of the globe.
Hmm.
Um, and so I guess in terms of Celtic music, with the roots being, kind of being in here,
Hmm.
whether it be the Maritimes and especially in PEI, um, it's kind of, I would consider, world music. It's kind of an all encompassing, I suppose, kind of category. It could be everything. In my mind, I would think that would take, it could be rock music, it could
Hmm.
be folk music, it could be solo banjo playing music, it could be, I think it kind of brings all of it together. Um, and I certainly know just from experience that Celtic music is certainly in all different pockets.
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity to experience that, and continue to do that. So so that's kind of, in my world music, that's, I think it's kind of an everything category, kind of in my mind,
Hmm.
you
Well,
know.
and kind of along those lines too, I'm interested to know, like, as far as being like an internationally touring artist, besides being exposed to all that and having those opportunities, which you obviously super appreciate that you had those opportunities, but bringing that back into what you're delivering with like the recent live album,
Right.
is there anything that you feel that maybe if you had have been more of like a local artist and didn't have that opportunity, do you think that there's something
I,
different you brought into it because of that exposure?
well, I think even, well, I think even the tune selection. but also like my writing style, like I tend to write pieces that are, and there's some pieces that are on the new album as well that I write even a little bit differently. They don't follow the same kind of Prince Rhode Island or Cape Breton maybe formula of tune. Um, However many bars or even like melodically line, but that's things that I would learn from listening to fiddlers from Scotland, and
Yeah.
Shetland. I'll use Shetland as an example because they have if they are diehard fiddle fanatics, probably equally as much as Cape Breton or PEI as far as fiddle music goes, and they certainly have their own unique style. And of course, super excited to be going back there at the end of April for the folk festival. And but they have, because if you look at it on a map, they're so close to Norway that there is Norwegian
Yeah.
influence. But even their style of writing, and I I've gotten to listen to a lot of the players from there. But I think you always take a little bit of that. I know that I have away when I'm performing, or you get to perform with a fiddle player from Sweden, or there's little things that they do, and little things that you may, I think sometimes you don't even realize that you're kind of taking back with you. So I think some of that kind of creeps into my writing style a little bit. Um, on this live album, yes, there's things that I have planned for the next studio album,
Mhm.
whether it be percussive wise, and some other elements that I want to definitely put in for the next studio album. Um, Again, it's kind of hard to get all the things that you want on
Yeah.
the live record without having 18-piece band or whatever the case
Yeah.
may be
Yeah. Yeah.
right there. But there is certainly influences in terms of you can hear it on certain tunes and pieces that I've composed on the new record as well. Yeah, for
I
sure.
know that historically, like bands, you can tell that there is some different influences. Like, I mean, this is going to come completely out of left field, but like the Police,
Yeah,
when the Police wrote like it was reggae music, but it wasn't reggae music
but
kind
it
of thing.
wasn't right. Yeah,
Yeah, like
yeah,
so I can see how bringing in different instrumentation and everything is like super appetizing.
right.
But structurally, as far as an album, which kudos to even having a full live album, because I know like we're living in a singles economy almost now.
Yeah,
But I did notice structurally, like the way that you have it grouped, having had exposure to like showcases and stuff, I could see how you do that in the theater style setting of that type of performance. But being someone that focuses a lot on East Coast music, usually when I venture into that territory for an album, it is structured more like a Cape Breton jigs and reels. And when I even just look at the track listing on your live album, it read more to me like what I see from people that are, string instruments and brass instruments or opera singers, like people that are doing more like sonnets and
yeah,
like play type breakdowns of structure. Like there's acts to your set.
right.
So
Correct.
is that traditionally what people can expect from your live performances?
It kind of, yeah, the live album kind of plays out this particular, like, I mean, it does play out, you're right, as the first kind of half of a show.
Hmm.
So you're right, if you want to call it like act one.
Hmm.
And the second half of the show, the plan, of course, is to release Richard Wood, uh an evening of East Coast music live part two, right? So
Oh,
there is going to
amazing.
be a second part of this album that would be another six tracks. So it would be like a double, a double two albums, but um, live one, live two, right? So that is coming. But yeah, it plays out like that. Part of the goal with this live album was to kind of just you can to create that raw, that energy. You can hear it whether you hear people hooting and hollering,
Hmm.
but I really wanted it to give you a sense of just a taste of what it would be like to experience it live, which is a whole other thing visually and etc. But yeah, I think we kind of really nailed that across that you could definitely get a hint of that in its kind of raw form of what you're kind of going to expect from a show, you know?
And since we're talking about shows, by the time people watch this, it'll already have happened, but in a couple days' time, you're holding an event that has become an annual event. I think it's your fifth year, maybe.
This year, yes, yeah, yeah,
So, despite the fact that people are going to miss this, so they're going to be immediately disappointed hearing this story, I'm assuming there's going to be a year six.
yes.
So, do you want to maybe describe the event itself so people get ready to buy tickets for next year?
Well, we certainly can. Yeah, it's called Richard and Friends, and this is a show that it was kind of born out of the pandemic. We wanted to try and do a show that would bring together a number of different artists of all different styles and basically create a payday
Hmm.
for artists and for technicians. That was kind of the concept behind creating the first one. And we did, and it was such a huge success. And we did it at the College of Piping in Summerside, PEI. And then from that, and from the success of that, we thought, well, what if we do this? Of course, we should definitely do it again, different artists, but also a different venue
Hmm.
in a different part of PEI, and kind of really create it, yeah, create this annual thing of happening at the same time. You know, we're into, Christmas is over, we're into the new year. It's the end of January. People are starting to get a little itchy and want to get out and experience the show. And so that's kind of how we kind of molded it, and it just kind of went from there. So yes, year five, and super excited for this year. It's going to be held here in Charlottetown at beautiful St. Paul's Church. So gorgeous venue. We've got house front Alex Pickles doing lighting and sound, so he's going to have it looking spectacular. And the guests this year will be Dylan Menzies, who's nominated for 6 PEI Music Awards this year.
Yeah, the nerve of him.
I know.
I'll have to talk to him too.
Yeah, Dylan's incredible. Just an amazing, amazing singer-songwriter. So he's brilliant. And Brooke MacArthur, who is carving out quite a name for herself in the country music world
Hmm.
here. So we got Brooke on the show. Jill Chandler, who is incredible singer-songwriter. She also the host of Ocean 100, co-host
Ah,
here at PEI's in the morning show. And Roger Stone, a dear friend, of course, legendary member of the group McGinty.
hmm.
So they've Roger's wonderful. Jordan Chowan, brilliant step dancer, and we've got a young 13-year-old by the name of Samuel Richard, who is the recipient of fiddle player. He's the recipient of our Fay and Richard Wood scholarship that we have
Oh,
for nurturing and teaching and taking care of lessons for a young fiddle student. So with that scholarship, he was the recipient in 2022 and in 2023, and he's full of charisma. He's an amazing little guy and just a great player. So hey, he's on the show as well, and he's gonna come up and do a number. And we've got Brent Chasen, who also was the engineer on the live album, great guitar player, multi-instrumentalist, and Ward McDonald, great fiddle player, piano player. So yeah, it's quite an action-packed show, shall we
yeah.
say.
And
Um,
the Richard kid, is he related to Logan as well, or is it just a name on the island?
it'd be a name, yeah.
Yeah,
He's not, but it, yeah, just a wonderful little talent. Yeah, and just
amazing.
incredible, and it's great too. That this is because it is year five. Um, it's super cool that it's really grown into something that people are really making it uh, a winter destination of something to do.
Yeah.
We've tapped into creating, it's not just the show, it's also we've partnered with the Great George. And the Great George is a wonderful hotel right downtown Charlottetown. And there's a package deal where they can stay. They have a dinner, a group $75 gift card. There's a whole bunch of things that are included with that, plus tickets to the show. And so it's bringing in people from Maine and Vermont and from all over, yeah, different parts of New England,
That's amazing.
as well as the Maritimes. And I think it's really cool. It's really important, I think, for PEI tourism, because
Mhm.
PEI here is always talking about how can we make it things on the island, not just between June and September,
Yeah.
expanding, and bringing people here. And this is one of those key events, I think, in dead of winter in January, that people are really kind of tuning into and tapping into and coming here. So it's super exciting that we get to see that and to
Hmm.
see the growth of that. Last year was at the Mackenzie Theater, was awesome. It sold out. Before that, the Florence Simmons Theater, and yeah, so different venue, different guests, and of course, I get up and collaborate with all the different artists that are on the show. Um, Hence the Richard and Friends, and it's just it's an East Coast kitchen party, so to speak,
Hmm.
and it's just really really cool. People get to experience a lot of different dynamics with this show, and a lot of collaborations that you normally don't or you normally wouldn't, right? Like
Hmm.
Dylan is off touring and doing his own thing, um, and so is Brooke and the other guests. So for us to get together, it may only happen this time for
Yeah.
God knows when, right? Like everybody's off doing their own thing. So it's really really cool to get together and create music and play, and yeah.
It is really interesting from this side of the fence to see the newer events of the last couple of years, because a lot of people are focused on all the things we lost.
Mhm.
And then this podcast kind of came out of the rebirth of the music scene as things started to reopen.
Right.
But we've gotten to the point that it's been a couple years now. And like we're kind of forgetting how much time has passed and starting to realize things like, oh, like Richard's been successful with this series that's in its fifth year. Like at first it was, what am I going to do?
Right.
And now it's something that's kind of evolved into its own thing. I see it repeated in a few different regions where there's new event destinations. Like every year at this time, I'm going to go to this event, and it's like-minded people, and it's all been birthed out of that. Like, what am I going to do? Think outside the box.
Mhm.
So it's nice to see that the music industry isn't going anywhere. It's just going to have to continually evolve, and may have to be some different ideas injected in there. Like that package idea is, I can't think of another situation where I could just drop some coin and everything's been looked after. I mean, my whole weekend's planned.
Totally. Hotel, food, yeah, a wine and dine kind of a cocktail party, tickets
Yeah,
to the show, the whole deal. Yeah,
that's
so
great.
very, very cool. Yeah, yeah.
And for anyone out there that's new to Richard Wood, that's intrigued by this conversation and wants to follow more of your career, where should people look for you online is like the most accurate, keeping up to date?
Well, I mean, you know, um, the website, I mean, is obviously rwood.ca. Pretty straightforward. Yeah,
Hmm.
rwood.ca. It's got that's got pretty much everything there that kind of directs you to where you want to go.
Yeah,
All link wise, whether it's YouTube or wherever it'll kind of it spreads out from there. And we have actually funny. I'm talking about this because we have a newly designed and ready to launch website soon, which is really cool. It's kind of been time for a redo and a kind of a makeover.
amazing. There'd be something to keep an eye out for as well then.
Yeah, and it looks really, really cool. It's really sharp, really fresh looking, and just up to date. Um, Really easy to navigate. Hey, oh, Richard's playing there. Hey, he's playing here. He's there. And it's all, you know, um, laid out very, very nicely and very clean and clear. And it'll be the same. It'll a new website, but still rwood.ca.
Hmm.
And like I said, that it kind of directs you all the different areas of whether you want to go to YouTube or whether you know, um, we were very, very happy to sign with Symphonic
Hmm.
for distribution. So also in the process of getting, I mean, I was kind of one of the old school cats where I tried to hold out as long as I could in terms of um, you know, how much music was going to be streaming and
Hmm.
away for free, so to speak, in that manner. But we're in the process now of getting all of the albums, which will be on there, and yeah, so we do have a few on there now, but just in the process. Eventually, all of the stuff will be on. and we'll have it on all the
Well,
different.
lots of new content for new listeners, and maybe some revisits for some of your older fans as well. So that'll be exciting to keep an eye on as the year progresses. I will also I'll be mentioning this probably repeatedly for anyone listening, and I apologize for the repetition, but I will be making a few trips to Prince Edward Island this year. So I will keep an eye out to see if you're doing any performances when I'm in the area. I will be mostly at festivals. I will be curious, and it's not a question. I don't want you to answer because I'll just jinx the whole thing. But you have played with Shania Twain, and she will be in PEI on a stage this summer. So I I'll just leave that out there for the universe to figure out, and maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised when I'm on site this year.
You
But
never know. You never know.
is there anywhere that you would recommend if I do happen to have any downtime in my travels? Maybe any venues I haven't heard of or places to eat. Definitely got to eat while I'm en route.
Well, I mean, downtown, I mean, yeah, downtown Charlottetown, depending on what you're looking for,
Hmm.
it's growing um, incredibly in terms of diverse in any type of whether it be Indian food or Lebanese food. Shaddy's is one of our favorites, Lebanese cuisine.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
yeah, it's awesome. Buena Mangi, Italian restaurant. Um, Great place, small, cozy Italian, but that's great. Ice cream, can't go wrong with Amelia's truck and roll, where it's a
Oh, see, I wouldn't have known that one. I'm gonna have to
rolled
get
ice
some ice
cream,
cream. Yeah,
rolled ice cream, and then of course Summerside. Um, Probably one of the most famous ice cream places is Holman's Ice Cream, which is a Prince Edward Island um, legend. Yeah, like if you get a chance to go to Holman's, they just incredible ice cream. So they're
amazing.
yeah, so those are some venue wise. I mean, yeah, we have, there's of course we have the Harborfront Theater in Summerside, gorgeous. And the College of Piping. We have there of course there's the Convent Center and there's, the Florence Simmons and some of the smaller churches, even some of the halls are really, really cool venues
Yeah.
on the island. They're cozy. Um, some of them too are up kind of a little bit more up close and personal,
Hmm.
and you'd be surprised, like getting into a hall that holds 150 people. Stanley Bridge Hall is one, of course, where I do my summer concert series, and they're just really, really. A lot of them have a really cool history of the hall, and yeah, so there's lots of really cool, neat little venues to check out. And of course, we have the Buzz magazine,
Yes.
and the Buzz is, I've been um, been working with the Buzz or working and have had my music and different shows that I've done advertised in there, and they're absolutely incredible what they've done for
They
the
they are one of the last music publication or publications on the East Coast that cover arts and music specifically. Like there's a few, but they're one of the last that really cover it in
and
any depth.
yeah, and in PEI, like I mean, you know, such depth in terms of what's going on is
Hmm.
by month, and yeah, so they're
Perfect.
they're incredible. Yeah.
Thanks for the tips. I'm gonna have to update my itinerary after this call. And when I'm on site, I'll keep an eye out for you. Hopefully, we get to meet in person.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
All right. Well, thanks again for your time, and hopefully, we talk soon.
Absolutely.
Okay. Bye.
All right.